when we are operating in our original design, and men are operating in their masculinity, and women are operating in their femininity, it fits together so perfectly, and we both get to offer fully and freely what we have to offer, and we get to receive what we were designed to need. When I look at how far off we are from that today and the experience of it, it makes sense to me why we're all crying out, but it's like we don't know how to get back to that.
Welcome to Hope Reforged, the podcast where we champion married couples from pornography addiction to a life of freedom, restoration, and unity. We know the road can be tough, but we're here to walk it together. It's time to break free from the chains of fear and shame. Experience Hope Reforged.
Welcome, Carrie Grace of Carrie Grace Consulting.
Thank you.
We've known you for
She's
a while.
back.
We've known you, and we love this woman. This is it's such a pleasure to have you. And we're really honored, honestly. So I love your heart for this topic of setting people free. You know, your heart toward both men and women, all sides. The people who are caught in trafficking, caught in, acting out pornography, and the ones who are going and consuming that. So thank you. I love your courage as well.
Thank you. Well, it's an honor to be with y'all. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I know you could have a lot of amazing guests, so I'm honored to get to be chosen. So thanks.
You are definitely one of those amazing guests.
Yes. There was a lottery. And you won.
Fantastic. I love winning.
I know one of the things that, is on your heart to share that I feel is so perfect for everybody who's listening in on this conversation is the role of men and women, because it feels like that we've gotten a little wonky in that area.
Right.
Can I say that for our nation, for our culture? But we've shared with our listeners that we've been all over the world, and we're seeing it over there too, here and there, everywhere. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Such a big topic right now.
Yeah.
And it used to be so simple. It didn't feel complicated or confusing for most of my life. It was just easy. And it was man, woman, masculine, feminine, boy, girl. And now it's just like up for grabs. And there's so much confusion. Right. Let me just pick. And I feel like it's just indicative of our need for God-given identity in every aspect again. And when there's a scripture that says that without vision, people perish. And that word means to come to utter and complete ruin. Like that's what it means to perish. And I feel like we've lost this clear vision for God's original design for us. And so it's like we're experiencing that perishing is kind of where I feel like we are right now. And I think it's because there's just a lack of clear vision. When I look back at the way that God started in the Garden of Eden with Adam, it was just Adam, and he creates him, and then he puts him in this garden, and every animal comes to him and gets named, but there was no suitable, partner for Adam. And for the first time, God spoke that something wasn't good. And it wasn't good for Adam to experience this aloneness.
Right.
And I would say that Adam still to this day struggles more with an experience of aloneness than Eve, because our existence was never alone. Think about that. When we came in, there was an Adam that was already there. So he causes Adam to go to sleep, and then Eve is taken out of Adam. So there was a part of Adam that was pulled out that became other. It became outside, and now it's woman. She's bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. It seems like such a manly thing to say to describe woman. And then you have Adam, and then you have Eve. And God's heart was to create two for the purpose of, again, experiencing oneness. And God's definition of oneness is never singular. It's always two or more becoming one, right, because he's a triune God, right? And so to be made in his image, we always need to be experiencing a oneness that is with others. It's with him, it's communion with him, it's communion with others. And so there's this experience of aloneness and loneliness that I think has permeated a lot of our experience today, that has created this isolation, honestly, of men and women kind of being in separate camps almost.
At odds with each other.
And at odds with each other, when the reality is that there's something really beautiful and perfect about man and woman coming together. That was God's original design. And it even says, I think it's so interesting because in Genesis, it tells the whole creation story. In Genesis 1, God said, let there be, light, and God spoke and it happened, and God spoke and it happened. Well, then when you read Genesis 2, it retells the whole creation story. And this time it says, the Lord God made, the Lord God formed, the Lord God fashioned. And you see the difference between what God the Father speaks, the presence of Jesus was the hands-on tangible forming. And you had the Holy Spirit that was hovering over that which was formless and empty to bring life. And so there was this beautiful harmony of the Godhead working together as one. And so when I see that he then created marriage to reflect that, and he created male and female, it says male and female, he created them, and he made them in their image. And so we are always going to have this natural draw that should be there between male and female, because it's a relationship that can carry the weight of reflecting the Godhead. And I feel like in our society today, there has been so much hurt and so much confusion that we've now become one another's enemy. And that's where I guess my heart really longs to see something be repaired, because when we are operating in our original design, and men are operating in their masculinity and women are operating in their femininity, it fits together so perfectly. Right. And we both get to offer fully and freely what we have to offer, and we get to receive what we were designed to need. And it's beautiful. And so when I look at how far off we are from that today and the experience of it, it makes sense to me why we're all crying out for the desires of our heart, and we're longing for something, but it's like we don't know how to get back to that, to that original design.
Today's episode of Hope Reforged is brought to you in part by C12, a nationwide mentoring framework of transformation for Christian business leaders. Find community at joinc12.com.
What's a practical way to describe what you just said? One offers their masculinity, one is offering our femininity. What does that look like in real world?
Yeah. So this was a journey for me. I had no idea. I knew the words masculine and feminine. They were in my vocabulary. I had no understanding. None. So I thought because I wore dresses and heels that I was feminine. Had no idea that I was operating primarily in the masculine energy all the time. And I think that our society today, a lot of women can relate to how I was operating. And about 6 years ago, I had a landlord that he wasn't like super social with people. He didn't really like people. But he came by one day and he was like, I feel like I'm supposed to give you this book. And he hands me a book and he leaves. And I was like, thanks, super awkward. And so I have a history of people showing up at my door with interesting encounters. Anyhow, so I get this book and I could not put this book down. It was showing me all about the masculine and the feminine. And I realized I had no idea that I was dressing up and operating as a man. And so when you look at what the masculine brings, the masculine is very action oriented. The masculine is about results. It is about productivity. It's about accomplishing. Okay, that's how the masculine energy, it's the doing energy. Okay. The feminine is more about being. It's about receiving. It's about creating the experience, not the result. Okay. So I was over here on a daily basis, and everyone that knows me can attest to this. I had my day mapped out in 30-minute increments with my to-do list. I was getting it done. Okay. I was very action oriented. I was very productive, and I got a lot of value out of that. It made me feel like I was worthy if I could accomplish.
Okay. Could you say that was part of your identity? Maybe?
Oh, yes.
A little bit.
Absolutely. And I had no idea that that was the masculine energy. And the way that God designed us, especially in relationship with one another, the male brings 80% masculine energy to the relationship and about 20% feminine, and vice versa. The woman brings 80% of the feminine energy, 20% of the masculine. So it's not that I'm not productive and I don't get things done. It's not that, but it's that I was not experiencing the feminine at all. I wasn't taking time to be. I wasn't nurturing myself. I wasn't in any way tending to any of the things that have to do with being feminine. I was just like going and making it happen every day. And I feel like it's important because a lot of us, I was a single mom at this time. I was running an organization that was pretty intense. And I felt like I have to keep all the plates spinning. I can't drop anything. But the reality was I was getting so burned out because I'm not designed to operate that way as a woman. And I think there's so many women that are living in that world where we feel like we have to make it all happen, and we're wearing ourselves out. And then the men in our lives, they're going to let us keep doing all the things. Like, we've shown them that we don't need them.
Yeah.
That's the message, is I don't need you. And a man needs to feel needed. He needs to feel like he has something to offer and that he can take care of a woman. And it's not that, and again, I can just feel the feminine or the feminist hatred on me right now, because it's not that I need a man or I'm not going to survive, right? God didn't make us to where we're going to fail if we don't have a man, because there are certain situations where that's not even going to be a part of our story. But at the same time, when a man is presented in our lives and we're still sending the message of, I don't need anything from you, then they have no place. They have nothing to offer. And we are primarily receivers and men are givers. I think it's fascinating that even in our anatomy, to be able to procreate,
Yes.
God made that obvious, that men are the ones that
Yeah.
give, they're the ones that offer, and the women receive. And all of that is very much intertwined, because if we're not offering our beauty and our softness, if we're not offering that nurturing, safe, but also sensual part of being a feminine being, then the masculine doesn't have anything to respond to, right? And so it's all very interconnected. He made it to where what we have brings out the best in you, what you have brings out the best in us, and it fits together so beautifully when we're operating in our original design.
You know, it's interesting too. You're talking, at least the way I'm perceiving it, I think so much in our culture, we sexualize everything, right? And we're talking a lot,
In the
not
United
about,
States, yeah.
not about, sexualized masculine and feminine. We're talking about like more emotional
Yes.
things and being in touch with those things. And so often, we see a lot of gender dysphoria nowadays.
Yes.
Our culture has moved into this idea that, gender is a fluid thing. And, and this is not a new concept, because people have been, I think, for a long time, understanding that they have masculine and feminine sides emotionally to them. It's just now that we're starting to like, okay, well, masculine means that, now I'm, as a woman, now I'm sexualized in the masculine, or I'm sexualized in the feminine. These aspects that, are not really what we're talking about.
Right.
And we've come into this place, I think, there's been this sort of perfect storm, and it's part of the enemy's plan has been building to this for a long time. I think there's been a lot of, if you go back and look at historically, not that, we're a generation or generations now that are, in a worse place. They're generations of going back have always had their struggles, and the enemy's been working against them. But we're in this place now where we've got technology, that's helping to exacerbate some of these issues and problems. And then we've also got societal issues that are coming into play that are exacerbating it. And the two of them are building and feeding off of each other and causing sort of this really crazy dynamic going on. And there's a lot of confusion with it now that people are just taking and running with, and it's leading to a lot of problems, I think.
Yeah. And what is our example of healthy relational dynamics? I mean, it's very rare to find a married couple that is inspiring. That, oh my gosh, I want to get married because I want to experience what they're experiencing. Like it feels so rare that what is the example of good to look at anymore? It's not portrayed in media. It's not there.
Well, I mean, we were talking earlier about Disney, right? And the shift that they've had in the past decade or two, where, it used to be, Cinderella and the, Aladdin and these stories. And now it's shifted to, the woman, Frozen and Moana and stuff. And, there is no guy involved needed, she can be her own hero, and she's the hero of her own story, and she doesn't need, or she's rescuing the guy.
Yes.
This reverse thing going on.
That's right. In my opinion, a complete devaluing of men is what I see is an agenda. And then we have ruled out the protectors of society, of the vulnerable. And again, the kickback on that is going to be, but they're the ones that are, abusing, and they're the ones that if they have power, then they're going to use it to harm people that, And so there's this fear of the very thing that we need. And so when I look at what God put in men have it in them to be predatory and protective. And the predator part that God put into men is to be able to protect his family and his loved ones, his property, what's valuable to him, right? I have to be able to perceive the threat, and I have to be willing to go after it so that it doesn't touch what I love and value, okay? So that's the predator part of a man. And when that is focused towards an enemy,
right?
It is exactly the way God designed it to be. But when the predator turns on the prey and on the weak and the vulnerable, then that's when things have gone awry, okay? And the protector part of them is not activated, the predator is. So when I look at society today, what I see is that the predator part of men has, and I would attribute it to the access to pornography. I'm just going to tell you that's my opinion. That definitely activated a predatory mindset in men towards women. And instead of that protector part of men coming forward for women. And so then women are afraid of what they see coming at them. At the same time, you have that aspect of women. Then you also have the sexualized woman who the only way I know to get attention or validation is to sexualize myself. So then what I am appealing to is the predator part of a man. instead of the protector. He's not going to come at me with the energy of, let me protect you because I see your value and I want to care for you and take care of you. It is, I want to take something from you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I see. There's this dynamic right now where women don't understand, why do I keep having the same experience? And why do men keep doing this to me? Well, part of it may be that you are presenting yourself in such a way now that you're actually activating the predator towards yourself rather than the protector. But then that's what society's pushing on us.
Absolutely.
And so then the dynamic between men and women is, it's just really messed up. And this to me is why we have to go back and look at original design. This is how it is with anything. Whoever originally designed and manufactured something is the expert in how it should function, how it should work. So for me, the original designer of all of this was God. I have to go back to him to be able to see how he formed and fashioned us in such a way that it works perfectly together. And that what I'm activating is in a man is that part of him that wants to take care of me. That's how a man expresses love, is he takes care of you. Okay, that's how a man expresses that. And for the woman, we have had a hard time with that word submission because it was used against us. And
it was
really,
abused, for sure.
Oh my gosh, it was grossly abused. And there was no context, broader context for what that meant. It was just, you just have to submit blindly, or you are, Jezebel is kind of the way that all went down. But the reality is, when you look at what the word submit means, it means to fully give yourself to. Well, when I have experienced the protector part of man, and that's what is activated towards me, then it is safe for me to fully give myself, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not putting myself at risk. I'm not in a vulnerable position. I am actually in a very free position because I've activated the protector towards me. So now I can experience freedom in that place, and I'm not going to be abused or misused. And for the man I feel like what has happened societally to men is an overall disrespect and distrust. And that has shut men down. It has shut down the protector. What men want to offer has been shut down because we're going to label you anyways. And
we see that in the sitcoms starting in the 80s, I think, is when we first started seeing men's role being downplayed, laughed at, become the butt of the jokes.
Yeah.
So, but I think it actually started before that, didn't it?
I feel like there was an agenda that rolled out that I look back at World War II when the dynamic changed in the family.
Yes.
And when men were gone and women stepped up, which is beautiful. But then when the men came back, the women didn't step back. It was like, okay, we're going to keep this.
Men were out there protecting the world, protecting all these nations, from the Holocaust. But then, then they came back to,
and they came back, and we were like, oh, we like this.
Yes.
And it was actually, I think, a beautiful opportunity to experience what I would say all of us have the opportunity to be the Proverbs 31 woman, where, that woman was, she was killing it. She's an entrepreneur. Like, she's got a vineyard that she has bought. She has got like an Etsy shop or something. She's selling to merchants. Like, she's like, she was doing all kinds of stuff. She was taking care of the poor, but her household was great. She looked fashionable. Like, she had it all going on, right? That was the ideal. And I feel like there's an opportunity that could have happened there that would have been beautiful for the men to come back and see, oh my gosh, like, this is exciting. And look at all the fun, cool things that she can do, and celebrate that without it being a role takeover where, the man's role got kind of diminished and pushed back, and the woman's, she didn't step back in and let him come back as that protector, provider of the family. And then you started seeing divorce, abortion, like all these things that I think came on the heels of that, the feminist movement, where empowerment, instead of it looking like a fullness of our expression as woman, where I can Proverbs 31 my life, and there's a fullness of woman. It became, instead of us stepping into the fullness of femininity, we stepped into masculinity. And that's where I feel like we overshot. we went too far.
Well, on the other side of that coin, though, too, I mean, you got guys coming back from war, right? And they're dealing with trauma and
Yes.
this thing that they've been through, and they're not dealing with it. They're not stepping up. They're getting lost in, okay, life sucked over there, and I'm going to find a bottle, or I'm going to find a needle, and
Yes.
I'm going to deal with it that way. And they're being taken out and not taking back the role that they abdicated when they had to leave.
Yeah. And I think that men came back feeling, there was so much PTSD that they felt like, I can't even trust myself anymore. I don't feel capable. I feel broken. And that's a horrible place for a man to be and to feel like that's where I'm at right now. And so I do think that it was this perfect storm and this is the thing about women. We have it in us when our husbands or the men in our lives are down. We have it in us to step up and to do what has to be done to take care of things. It's just that God did not give us the fullness of what he gave man. We don't have near the testosterone that you have. It's just not how he wired us. I can't go and make some more of that for myself. It's the beards. And so it has then led to women exhausting themselves, operating in a role that we were not designed, carrying responsibilities we weren't designed to carry, and not knowing how to step back and then trust that the man will fill that space again. And again, I just look at the outcomes of it. It's not that there's one was evil or anything like that. It's just that we were all in a perfect storm, but we've landed here now where roles are not even clearly defined. I don't know what it means to be a woman. I don't know how to relate to a man anymore because
we don't know what it means to be a man.
We don't know what it means to be a man anymore,
right.
And how to relate to these women. And it's just like a big start all over from scratch is what it feels like. We've got to figure this all out again because we're so off.
And the technology that's growing up now, where they are, we've got social media replacing actual relationship, right? And even less so are you able to learn how to interact and what it means to be, all these social dynamics that take place just from interacting with other people, and now, no, we're doing that on Facebook and, we're staring at the phone until 3 a.m. And, that's not
it's not the same. I have my son is 24 years old now. And when I look at his generation and men knowing how to even pursue a woman and what that even looks like.
Wow. Mm-hmm. How are you helping him through that?
We have so many conversations. And this is something he's very passionate about learning because again, he's trying to find those examples, around him of what is this? What is manhood? What is it supposed to look like? And trying to see, I want to model after something, but it's just so hard to find those good examples. And so it's been fun to walk alongside him. It's been hard at times because, he's trying to go against the grain right now.
He is, yeah.
Of what it looks like to pursue and not just, put yourself on all these apps and just wait and see what comes to you. And, it's just a whole different, it doesn't call out what's in a man, when it's just endless options and swipe lefts. It requires nothing. Mm-hmm. It's just endless shopping, for women. We're over there on Amazon and they're on, whatever trying to, truly though, it's like there's an endless, it feels like an endless option, even though in reality, if we were having to do this old school, I grew up in a town that didn't even have a population sign. The options were limited, okay? That were very limited.
Right.
And you had to figure out, if I want this girl, well, there's only, there's 5 other guys and, we're going to have to figure this out, who's going to get the girl. There was a real putting yourself out there. And I feel like there's not as many opportunities for men to do that anymore, and to see what's in them and to face rejection and have the resiliency to get back up and still be the man, you know? It takes a little bit of that. And I think that's one thing he has been pursuant of is I want to be able to handle rejection and still get back up and pursue the way I want to and not let it, wound my ego to the point that I retreat back into swiping.
Yeah, I need to go back to my safe space.
So how can we as women invite the men in our lives to get back into the front seat of the car? Like instead of taking the back seat.
Yes.
How do we,
This is what I'm so passionate about. I actually have groups of women that I'm taking through these femininity courses that I lead. I love it so much. I've been writing different materials about this because I realized that this was such a key to relationships. This masculine feminine polarity is so crucial. And I think it's something that marriages are silently hitting and not knowing that this is a dynamic that's been thrown off. And so instead of magnets, drawing to each other, they're actually pushing each other away. Okay. Yes. And not knowing that it's this masculine feminine. Now that I have this lens, it's so easy to pick up on with my husband when I'm operating in the masculine and when he's not offering the masculine. And my husband is a very masculine man. Okay. Very. He did not need me to be masculine. I did not know what to do with him at first. I was like, oh my gosh, like he's such a manly man. And I don't know how to, I had no idea what to do with him. I really did not. I've never been intimidated by anyone in my life until my husband. I was like, I'm so intimidated by this man. But it was
yet so attracted.
But yes, but there was that. I was like, wow. So he doesn't need me to operate in that. But nevertheless, there are still these things that get activated in me. And what I want to say to women, we will operate in the masculine when we don't feel safe. That's when we will flip into the masculine. Mm-hmm. So
yes, agree.
For a woman, if all of a sudden I don't feel like you're going to protect me, or I don't feel like you're emotionally, sensitive to what I'm experiencing, or I don't feel like you're going to provide enough for me, those like primal things in us, when those get hit, our instinct, instead of to lean back, trust the Lord, give him space to come towards us, we typically grab a hold of the reins and we take over and we take care of ourselves. And so for a woman, I'm going to give you a like Cliff's Notes version. When you have the thought in your mind, I'll do it myself, you have just stepped into the masculine. I promise you, it sounds like that. It sounds like I'll do it myself. And this is what's so funny to me now, because I've been really trying to practice just being in my feminine and being like, it's okay. I can be soft. I can be soft on the outside, strong on the inside, right? Whereas the man gets to be hard and strong on the outside, and then they're soft on the inside. You know what I mean? I get to be soft. I get to be taken care of. I get to experience being, and I get to then have creativity and flow. I don't have to be rigid. I get to be feminine. So since I've been practicing this and experiencing this is so hilarious to me now. If I go into that mindset of, I'll just do it myself then. Like, let's just say, hypothetical. We're not going to give a real example, just in case my husband's listening. Hypothetically, if the trash doesn't get taken to the curb every once in a while, and I decide to my little self, I'll just do it myself. And I go out there and I start rolling that big can out, I literally will have a hard time breathing. It's now physically, it affects me because I'm going against something that I have decided is important to me and I value it. And when I'm betraying my little self, I physically feel it now. Whereas before, I would have been doing that without a thought. I would have just been like, oh, well, he's just not going to, I'll just do it.
Well, okay, let's clarify something though, because I think there's a different heart posture if it's like, okay, he didn't sleep well last night.
Yes.
He was
different.
out, working so hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go do this for
Yes.
him.
Yes.
So that he doesn't have to worry about it. I'll
Absolutely.
take out the trash this morning. That's not a big deal.
Totally a
So,
heart posture.
okay.
Yeah.
As
if I want
opposed
to
to
do
like
that.
he loaded the dishwasher wrong and now I'm going to fix it for him.
I mean,
Hypothetically, of course.
Hypothetically. I love these hypotheticals.
I was thinking you could fit your coffee cup in if I rearranged the dishes
Okay.
because
Serving
there
it.
would be more
Yes, okay.
room.
All right.
It's a very practical, feminine solution
Yes,
here.
correct.
So go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's really fascinating once you start seeing what are the characteristics of the masculine. One thing I do with the groups of ladies on the very first night, I give them a list of characteristics of when a woman's operating in her feminine and when she's operating in the masculine. And I let her circle which ones she's experiencing.
Okay.
And every woman so far is like 80% in her masculine, at least when we start the course. And then over the time of embracing this and allowing ourselves to remember our original design, we get to move back into that feminine. And then I have husbands coming to me going, thank you. I feel like I'm married to a girl now. And so it's been really rewarding, but this to me is all connected. So my work since, 2010 has been in anti-trafficking, working with, victims who've been sexually exploited. But this to me is one of the root causes.
Absolutely.
And so all of it is very connected to me. And that if we could go back and restore this, give us back our original design, then what we're experiencing with one another is the healthy experience. And this no longer is appealing. That's my heart behind really diving into this and trying to teach others what I'm learning. Yeah.
Have you noticed, I think it's on social media. I'm not really a social media person. There's this resurgence of women wearing dresses and aprons in their home and wanting to, the trad wife, the trad wife. Isn't that interesting though, that the younger generation's hungry for what's real? And my hope is that God is moving upon the hearts of younger generations to restore their true identity. I mean, you said that I word at the beginning of this episode. And I'm 100% with you. I think it's all about our true identity, how we were created.
Yeah. And I do think it's fascinating. I'm watching that because I'm just like, oh, okay, what's happening right now?
Right.
And I think that there's this looking back in history to try to find something that felt stable and secure. And so when I see embracing, I'm going to make bread from scratch. I'm going to wear a dress and an apron. To me, these are symbols. They're outward symbols of I want to reclaim something that felt safe and stable. And so that's what I see. But I'm very fascinated. I'm watching that because we went from, I feel like I've been through so many. I turned 50 this year, and it's like I've just watched so many different things kind of wave through over the years. But we pendulum swung from the boss babe is like, that is what woman is now. We have to be killing it in our careers, and we've minimized the value of being a mom and a wife, okay? Because this is now what is the epitome of womanhood. And now when you see this trad wife trend coming along, I'm like, well, what's going to happen here? Because this is like a huge pendulum swing, and I'm excited about it. It encourages me. One, because it allows us to experience the roles again of husband and wife being valued, that what he brings is valued and what I bring is valued. And it's not in competition. Okay. And so I think that that's interesting to watch. And at the same time, when I think about a woman being in the home, when we look at children, the first 3 years of life is really when their attachment style is being formed. Okay. And honestly, the first 18 months, but up to 3 years. And so when I look at attachment style, which is so important of how we then relate to others, when you have someone that has a secure attachment because their primary caregiver is available, attentive, and responsive to them, then they're able to go into the world in a secure way, which to me helps insulate their identity. Okay. And so when I look at, again, big picture issues that I see when you look at attachment theory and when you have insecure attachments, anxious attachments,
Yes.
Avoidant attachments, everyone's experiencing this in the dynamic. So you have a husband who is maybe looking at pornography. So he is now operating in the avoidant attachment. The woman becomes anxiously attached. I mean, there's all of this, but it goes back to that is formulated in those first months of life in us. And it can be healed, but you're moving through the world that way. And so that's why I'm like looking at the whole family dynamic going, I'm interested in how this is going to play out potentially in our society.
Well, as someone who works with human trafficking, sex trafficking victims, you're involved in that world day in and day out, and seeing the crumbling of the family unit. I love this perspective because I think it's going to give vision to these younger generations to try to do something different. But and the good news is that it's not in our own strength because we have help.
Yes.
We have help from our Heavenly Father.
Yeah. And when we get a clear vision for our marriage, when I am intentionally, and this is where I tell people, if you're not taking time to have vision for your marriage, for your health, for your business, if you do not take time to have vision and cultivate and steward that vision, and that you can see it and articulate it so clearly because you're spending time nurturing the vision. If I don't have a clear vision for my marriage, then I don't have a standard to hold up that goes, oh, I'm not going to do this because that doesn't fit my vision. I have nothing to weigh these things against.
Yes.
And so then anything can be a part of my marriage because I don't have a vision for it anyways. So when people get a clear vision for their marriage, it becomes the protector of everything that you value. And you won't sacrifice it so easily because you realize this is what I am working towards. And it's important enough to me to steward a vision.
And unity comes from that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's if both husband and wife are working in the same direction. Carrie Grace, thank you. We are again so happy you're here. Let's see. Hawkwood Foundation is connected to what you're doing. So we'll put a link on our website for Hawkwood. And then your company is Carrie Grace Consulting.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I love spending time with y'all. It's been great conversations. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Hope Reforged. Together, we can break the chains of addiction and rebuild hope. To stay connected, visit us at www.hopereforged.com, where you'll find new episodes, resources, and support. If you found this helpful, please leave us a review and share it with someone who would be encouraged by this podcast. Until next time, persevere, lean into hope, and remember that restoration is yours.